When I say think of the scariest state in America, you probably wouldn't say Ohio, but let me tell you, the more I learn about this place, the scarier it gets. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily, and today we're counting down part 3 of our list of the top 10 terrifying places in Ohio that are pure evil. And if you haven't seen part 1 and 2, make sure to check that out because Ohio is filled with creepy places. Number 10. Seelbach Hilton. It's said at the Seelbach Hilton, if you take an elevator, a mysterious woman may greet you. According to the Historic Hotels of America website, in 1987, a chef working in the hotel saw a woman with dark hair wearing a long blue dress walk into an elevator with the doors still closed. Moments later, a housekeeper on another floor saw the same woman get into the elevator with closed doors. Now, who is this woman? Well, they think they have a theory. A 1936 newspaper report said a woman learned of her husband's death in an automobile accident as she waited for him at the hotel. So upset by the news, she jumped to her death in the number 3 elevator. She was also reported to have been seen wearing a long blue chiffon dress. So is this the mystery lady? I think so. Number 9. Geauga Lake Amusement Park. What once was the world's largest theme park is now an overgrown land of decaying roller coasters, empty concession stands, and abandoned ticket booths. In 1925, the Big Dipper roller coaster was built and it was an absolute hit. At the time, it was the largest coaster ever built, but soon tragedy struck. In 1942, the park was hit by a tornado, 6 people were injured, and the park experienced a lot of structural damages that cost around $1,000. Further tragedy struck in 1952 when a massive fire engulfed parts of the park, destroying many key features of the park, including the famous dance hall, the theater, the roller rink, and the bowling alley, with damages amounting to $500,000. From 2000 to 2004, the park was expanded and became Six Flags Ohio, and from 2004 to 2007, it became known as Geauga Lake again under the ownership of Cedar Fair. But on September 21st, 2007, Cedar Fair announced the park would not be reopening, and it has been abandoned ever since. The only thing left standing at the former amusement park is the Big Dipper roller coaster, and with that much tragedy there, it's no wonder this place is haunted. Number 8. The Phantom Car on Route 40 to Englewood. In the 1950s, people would be driving along the highway and see a green-tinged lit-up skeleton supposedly driving a car on Route 40. At least 5 stories of the Phantom Traveler have been reported to the local state highway patrol, many claiming the Phantom driver seemed to be challenging truck drivers to play chicken along the narrow and dangerous stretches of the highway. The Phantom allegedly wrote a letter to Sheriff J. Arthur Sherman of Clark County, daring the sheriff to chase him. Many think it's just a prankster, perhaps someone who is mentally ill, but regardless, this is still extremely creepy. Number 7. Wittenberg University. Historic Wittenberg University, chartered in 1845, has its share of spine-chilling tales, most notably one about a ghostly horse. The top floor of Myers Hall at Wittenberg University was used as a hospital for Civil War soldiers. Legend has it that a general, realizing he was about to die, requested that his faithful horse be brought to him. After saying goodbye to his companion, the general died, but the horse would not leave his side and was shot by soldiers. It's said that the sound of hoofbeats and neighing of the horse searching for its master can still be heard on the campus, which is like so cute but so sad, and a ghost horse sounds pretty cool to me. I mean, come on. Number 6. Buckeye Charm. Buckeye Charm, a boutique owned by Jonah Powell, was once featured on the Travel Channel's paranormal investigation show Ghost Nation because it was so haunted. The property was built in 1877 as St. Augustine's Catholic Church. In 1976, the church was sold to become a commercial building. Now, during the filming, a loud EVP, electronic voice phenomenon recording was captured in the building, the words "Hallowed be thy name." The crew was concerned that the voice was a staged prank, Jonah recalled, because it was so loud and so clear, and they've had times in the past where people have tried to trick them or do something. So they had their crew shut down, turn on the lights, stop what they were doing, and search for speakers just to make sure it wasn't something that we were pulling over them. The ghost hunters suspected that a disgraced priest may be behind the scratches, bizarre apparitions, and the EVPs. Number 5. Waynesville Union Schoolhouse. Waynesville Union Schoolhouse was built in 1891 and is currently used for storage by inside the American Legion Hall. After the newer school was built up the hill, they shut it down and put the town library on the first floor. In the basement, the American Legion had their bar where all the guys went. It was the only place in town where you could drink, and eventually they built a newer building over here, so the building is just sitting there. Nobody can decide what to do about it, how to save it or tear it down, said a townsperson. Since the place has heard stories about strange happenings in the basement, Lee Allen, a local paranormal investigator, was consulted. Lee brought a psychic from Columbus and she knew nothing about this town. A group was in the building with some of the people from the American Legion and Lee's team, and all of a sudden the psychic said, "There's some men here that don't want you ladies here in the basement at all in their Legion Hall. They want you to leave." Now the women knew it was a guy's place, but they didn't pay too much attention to what the psychic said until she said, "No, they're really serious. They want you to leave. This is not a place for ladies." Then a ghost touched one of the women's shoulders and they screamed. The psychic said their names are Ralph and Carl and they really seriously want you to leave. So they left. And I mean, if a ghost tells you to leave, you probably should. Later, the woman who had to leave said she told the story to a friend who grew up on the corner close to the American Legion and specifically mentioned Ralph and Carl. She said to me, "You're kidding me. Ralph Smith and Carl Siffer spend every day up there in the basement at the bar." Eventually, she heard Carl's wife say that if he was any place in town, that's where he'd be. Number 4. Poasttown Elementary School. Poasttown Elementary School was built in the 1930s and served as a place of education until the year 2000. It's a building in rural Ohio that is now known more for sightings of apparitions and spirits within its walls than it is for exams and detentions. It's believed that the reason for the hauntings could be linked to 2 separate train incidents in 1891 and 1910 that claimed 30 lives. Without a nearby hospital, the field where the school was built became a triage center. The theory is the spirits of those who died in the accident still remain on the land. Daryl Wisman, a former teacher who made Poasttown Elementary his home, told WCPO in 2016, "We'll hear a desk being dragged across the floor above us. We'll hear little kids' footsteps. I've heard voices with my own ears when nobody is here but me and my wife. I just can't explain it." Paranormal investigators have been called in, and the building is also used for community events. According to Daryl, most leave the school having experienced something strange. He says the school's motto is, "When you leave, you believe," and that honestly sounds perfect because that sounds terrifying. Especially hearing students' footsteps and voices, that is a no from me. Number 3. Helltown. Founded in 1806, Boston Village, aka Helltown's original claim to fame was its standing as the oldest village in Summit County. Boston's relatively uneventful life took a turn for the worse in 1974 when the National Park Service decided that Boston Township would be the new home for a new national park and began buying the properties of its longtime residents. The empty houses were boarded up and adorned with U.S. no trespassing signs. But then the government quickly fell behind on its plan to create the park and the village sat neglected. The hellish aura of the area only continued to grow when rangers visiting the site became ill and covered in rashes. It was soon discovered the dump was highly polluted with toxic chemicals improperly disposed of. Also, in the village there is a church which is said to have been built by Satanists complete with upside down crosses. There's an abandoned bus that is said to be the host to lingering ghosts, and maybe the most outlandish of all, there is talk of mutants who were created by the chemical spill, including a monstrous snake known as the Palencia python, so I would never want to visit there. No. Number 2. Dayton Masonic Temple. The Dayton Masonic Temple was constructed between 1925 and 1928, and it has wonderful architecture. A woman said she went for a tour there led by a man named George. "I sat down in a chair for a little bit, he scooped me up by the elbow and led me along," she recalled, saying that he guided her to a photo of Masonic's graduation classes over the years. "He directed me to a specific year and there he was in the picture. He was a jolly, portly gentleman." After the tour, she spoke with some Masonic officials who had brought her there to take her on the tour. One official in particular asked her stern questions about the areas she had toured. She mentioned the man, George, and the photo. The skeptical official asked her to show him the picture. "When we got to the picture, he turned pale," she said. "He said, 'That's the guy I see around here all the time.'" So yeah, she got a tour from a ghost. And honestly, that's pretty cool because I'm sure he gave her some inside information about it all, but that's kind of spooky. And Coming in at number 1 is Victoria Theatre. Victoria Theatre is 150 years old, and there have been many sinister events there. For example, the story of a touring actress in the early 1900s who went to her dressing room to change for the next scene and never came out of the room. No trace of her was found, though fewer and fewer actors would use that dressing room, with reports that some would look into the mirror and see her face staring back again. In the 1950s, a man ended his life in the theater by wedging a knife into a seat in front of him and throwing himself upon it. When the curtains around the left exit door are pulled, some people claim to see his face. Staff members through the years have said that they've heard strange noises like rustling of satin or suddenly smelt the scent of roses in the air. Others are said to have seen the ghost of the Victoria's founder when they're alone in the building. Diane Schofler-Warren, Victoria's spokeswoman, said that many of the historical theater's longtime volunteers and staff like to blame these strange occurrences on Miss Vicky, who was not a real person. Every theater has its legends, such as the legend you don't say Macbeth in a theater or the legend of the ghost light in the theater, she said. The ghost stories are particularly popular with the Victoria's volunteers, but as we all know, 99% of the time, you're not going to the theater to get goosebumps from ghosts, but rather from the fabulous performances. I don't know though, that sounds pretty terrifying to me. Well, that's all for part 3 of our list of the top 10 terrifying places in Ohio that are pure evil. I'm gonna say it. Only in Ohio. Now, would you ever want to go to one of these places? Let us know in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe while you're down there. I'm your host, Emily, and I'll see you next time. Peace. When there are Others are said to have seen the ghost of Nope. Diane's